Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of FPL Fanzone. My name's Nick and in today's episode we are going to look at the 6 major updates for the FPL 25-26 season. So we're going to look at defensive contributions. What does that mean for defensive centre backs, looking at defensive midfielders? Is this actually a game changer in terms of how we set up and look at our teams? We're going to look at double chips. They've removed the assistant manager chip for this season, and we're going to look at how the double chips are going to play out for 25-26. They've added in extra transfers to accommodate for African Cup of Nations coming up in Gameweek 16. There's additional changes to the assist rule, which we'll go through in a bit more detail. The bonus point system has been tweaked again this season, and we'll look at some of what that means for your teams. And then lastly, there's a nice little update around global qualifying leagues for the top 1% and top 10% as well, which I think is just a nice little addition for those that are really engaged throughout the whole season. But as always, this is a fairly new channel. This is now my second season going into FPL Fanzone. I'd love to hit 500 subscribers before we hit the start of the season. So if you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button if you like what you see, and don't forget to drop a comment if you've got any questions regarding the upcoming season. But without further ado, let's get started. First up, let's have a quick look at the defensive contributions and what that means for this year. So they announced that they're going to be now adding in more statistics and ways to win points for defensive contributions. So let's have a quick look at what that looks like. So what is a defensive contribution? Now they've actually defined it as CBIT, clearances, blocks, interceptions and tackles. For defensive midfielders and for forwards, they've also included recoveries as well, which is why this one's asterisked. But how this works is that a defender will need to get at least 10 of these contributions within the 90 minutes to get 2 points. If they get over 10, let's say they get 20, for example, they don't get 4 points. The maximum you can get is 2 points, and you don't get 5 points or 1 point if you only get 5 defensive contributions as well. So there is only an option of, it's like having a clean sheet or not having a clean sheet. You've either done 10 or more if you're a defender, or 12 or more if you are a midfielder or forward as well. So realistically, just looking at this, clearances, blocks, interceptions and recoveries, it's really focused on those centre backs, those defensive midfielders that are getting a lot more involved in the game, but not necessarily being recognised in FPL. So do I think it's a good addition? Absolutely. I like to see new ways of doing it. Is it as exciting watching someone get a clearance and get a tackle as watching someone getting an assist or a goal? Absolutely not, in my opinion. Obviously, it's a big part of the game, and as someone who played in defence, I understand it, but it's certainly not as exciting when you're watching it from a fantasy football perspective. The other thing they announced on this as well is that you won't be able to actually track how many defensive contributions a player has made in-game. So you'll only get to see the points once they've actually hit that threshold of 10 or 12, depending on their position. So you're not really going to be able to go, oh, they just need one more tackle or they need one more recovery in order to get to that point, because it's not going to be tracked anywhere in there. But once they have hit that mark, it will show up in where you normally see your points for your saves or your assists, for example, in the app. So what does this actually mean for defenders? And the first question when I saw this come out was actually, how does this impact their pricing? Because that's the bit that's going to make the difference. If you're just going to give them more points and keep them at the same price, then absolutely it's a game changer. But if you're going to change their pricing to take into account that there are now additional points available, then obviously that changes how we're going to draft these players moving forward. So on the left hand side of the screen here, what you'll see is the top 10 players for defenders points last season. So Gvardiol, Alexander-Arnold, Milenkovic, Van Dijk and Munoz. And then on the right hand side here is you'll actually see the top 10 if defensive contribution points were included last season. Now 7 of those top 10 are still the same players. So Milenkovic, Van Dijk, Gvardiol, Munoz, Alexander-Arnold were all in there in terms of being in the top 10 last season. But what you are seeing is that there's a few new names coming in there: Tarkowski, Lacroix, Huyssen. That obviously he's no longer there, as neither is Trent, as they've both been transferred out to Real Madrid. But it does bring some new names into this mix for that as well. And as I said, that would be great if Collins was still a 4.5 midfielder. But if he's now a 5.5 midfielder, then it doesn't really change anything in terms of how the game's going to play. It just means obviously there's a different way of scoring that, because if you look here, Collins wasn't even in the top 10, and now he's the 5th best defender based on defensive contributions included in his score. And he actually would have ended it with 4 points behind Gvardiol overall. So it is a big difference in terms of how it's going to impact who you choose. But overall, I think the defenders, there's a massive difference. We'll look at midfielders in a minute. But yeah, you can see here that it's significantly changes the numbers there. So Gvardiol, as you said, 153 points was the top defensive scorer last season. But if defensive contributions, then the top would have been Milenkovic with 171. So that's only 18 points more over the course of a season, which is less than half a point a week in total. But for Milenkovic himself, it's 30 points more, so it's nearly a point a week from him in that as well. So when we actually look at the top performers in terms of points allocated based on defensive contributions last season, you can see here that you've got Caicedo was the top with 42 points from the midfielder's perspective. Now 42 points over 38 games is 1.5 points a game for that as well. But he's the absolute top of that as well. If you look at second place in Anderson, he's got 36 points. That's less than a point a game. And then obviously from there, it continues to drop down. So in terms of midfielders, I don't think it actually changes the needle at all. Are we going to pick any of those defensive midfielders over a Salah, for example? Absolutely not. Over a Cole Palmer, over... It just doesn't make sense. And even if you look, for example, on the table on the right here, you'll see that Matoma got no defensive points last season, got 145 points. And yet Anderson, who was the second highest for defensive contributions as a midfielder, still doesn't get anywhere above Matoma. Now, I think Matoma probably was about the top 20th midfielder in terms of points scored last season. So is it really going to change? Probably not. We might look at them as a 5th midfielder, but realistically, I just don't feel that midfielders are going to be changed by this defensive contributions piece. And of course, if you look through the information provided by FPL, there's no mention of any strikers getting defensive contributions, or certainly not enough to make any difference in terms of moving the needle on that as well. So for me, in terms of defenders, yes, it changes who we're going to go for. And someone like Murillo, for example, is going to get, if he's going to get the most points in the game and he's going to be cheaper than Gvardiol, then it just means that we'll just pick Murillo instead of Gvardiol for that as well. Of course, still the biggest points for any defender is the clean sheets. If they've got attacking side as well, they're probably going to do less of that defensive contribution piece. So you just really got to weigh up where do you feel more is coming from the defender side. But in midfielders and forwards, I think it makes no difference to the game whatsoever. Next up, and then I guess for me the second biggest announcement for rule change is the double chips. So they've removed, first and foremost, they've removed the assistant manager chip, which I'm okay with. While I didn't mind the chip and I did quite well with it, with a surprise double game week, double came up last season. I felt it was a little bit too complicated in terms of being able to have extra budget available. So you may need to sell a player in order to have, and then obviously there was the complication of having 3 players plus a manager. You couldn't do that, and then not having another chip and it lasting for 3 weeks. It was just, there was too much involved in terms of making it simple for new users to come in and understand. For those that are watching this channel or that are planning ahead, it was fine, but for everyone else, it was just a really complicated chip to use. So they've removed that for this year and replaced it with what we're known as double chips. So we're going to get these chips in the first half and in the second half of the season. So from game weeks 1 to 19, you'll have a wild card, free hit, triple captain, and a bench boost. And then in the second half of the season, from game week 20 to between game week 20 and game week 38, you'll have another wild card, which was the same as last season, but then you'll also get another free hit, another triple captain, and a bench boost. Now, please note that these don't roll over, so you won't get 2 of each in the second half of the season. After game week 19, you lose, if you haven't already used them, you will lose your first allocation of those as well. The other little bit of information there as well is that you cannot use your free hit chip in game week 19 and game week 20. So you can't go back to back with your free hits. That was noted in the small print there when you're looking at the changes there. What does this mean for the game? I quite like it. It does mean less planning in terms of a lot of people had to wait for patience, hold off their chips for the double game weeks or the blanks in the second half of the season. Now it just gives us a little bit more spice in the first half, and there's people now talking about doing bench boosts in game week 1, for example, because there's unlikely to be any double game weeks in the first half of the season, as we saw last season and for most of the seasons previous to that. So therefore, all of these chips are going to be a little bit more dynamic, sporadic, a little bit more luck maybe, because you're relying on a 1 week game performance as opposed to having that chance of getting double if you've got a double game week as well. So I don't mind it. It does give a little bit of spice, a little bit of something different for the first half of the season for those like me who waits until game week 29, 28, 30 to use their chips in every other season. So it just gives you the opportunity to kind of play with them twice and get that upside. It also means, of course, that you can look at triple captaining against those newly promoted teams. A lot of people did it with Haaland last year at the start of the season, but you could do that and then of course look at targeting it again in a double game week in the second half. So overall, I'm quite happy with this as a change. It does mean a little bit less patience and a little bit more action in that first half of the season for those of us that were trying to rely on getting the double as a bonus. Next up, and probably my least favourite change that they've announced for the new season, is extra transfers for AFCON. Now, this is an interesting one because what's going to happen here is that for the game week 16, when AFCON starts, and obviously a lot of players will go off to the African Cup of Nations, you will automatically have 5 transfers for that game week, which is like a mini wild card. So let's look what that actually means. So if you're in game week 15 and you've used all of your free transfers, when you go into game week 16, obviously you get your 1 free transfer every week anyway, so you'll actually get 4 additional transfers. For every transfer that you've saved up until that point, you start to lose the additional value that someone else would have had by just using all of their transfers. So something that I'm starting to think about is that maybe in game week 11, I use my first wild card, try and hold off for those first 4 weeks, then in game week 15 use my 5 free transfers, and then in game week 16 get 5 more. It feels like a no-brainer. I get 2 wildcards almost in the first half of the season. I could make 10 changes in 2 weeks if I do that. So do I like this? Personally, no. Obviously, it's a bit of a different change in how it's done before. But again, it feels like a way to just help people that haven't planned for the African Cup of Nations. You're not giving people the tougher choice of, do I keep Salah and Wissa and Ait Nouri and Sarr up until game week 16 and plan to have my transfers, or plan to keep my wild card so that I can then transfer them all out in game week 16? Or do I have to start moving some of those better players out beforehand and therefore playing with my team to make sure that I've got those? By doing this, I just feel that everyone gets to keep everyone until the last minute and then change them free of charge, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. I feel that there should be some planning for FPL. But let me know in the comments below. That's obviously my opinion. I like to plan. I like to plan ahead and understand what my transfers are going to look like. But I just feel that this one is a bit of a step too far in trying to make it easier for some of the other players. Okay, the 4th change that was announced was a change to the assist rule. And this one isn't massively going to change the game in itself. It just means that more assists will be awarded. So things previously where if a pass was played into a box and it hit a defender before landing at a player which was not the intended target, you wouldn't get the assist. Now they're saying that one deflection off a defender is fine as long as that cross stays within the box. If it goes outside of the box, you won't get the assist. They will classify it as too big a deflection. And then also if there are two touches between a cross coming in to landing to the attacker who scores, then it won't get the assist as well. But it just removes some of those ones where we go, oh, hang on a second, that pass was directly through to the middle. That should be an assist because he was the last person to kick it. There may have been a slight touch on the way through. The other one as well is the assists for forced penalties. So there was an example last season when Pickford pinged the ball the length of the field, and then there was a handball forced off the attacker running through. Now Pickford didn't get the assist for pushing that ball forward and into a position where that defender would handball it, whereas this season he would have got that assist for that as well. So is it going to change anything? No, I just think it's slightly less grumbling from fans around what is an assist and what isn't. There will still of course be some circumstances where assists are not awarded, but realistically I think this is just a nice little tweak to make sure that we are actually celebrating people getting assists and getting points in the game as well. But realistically it may change one or two assists for 3 or 4 players over the course of a season. It's not going to break any of the rules or anything from that side. So for me, a nice little change. I'm quite happy with this one. Next up, a change to the bonus point system. Now they do this every year. They make a little change, bring in slight tweaks to how the bonus point system works. For those that are new, the bonus point system is every player gets points for their actions throughout the game. It could be defensive contributions, it could be goals, assists, saves. All of those types of things happen, and they start to get little points behind the scenes. And then for the top 3 players of every game, and that could be split between both sides. The top 3 point scorers for the bonus point system will get, the top one will get 3 points, the second one will get 2 points, and the third one will get 1 point on that as well. So what are the changes behind the bonus point system? The first one is goalkeeper saves. Now it used to just be they would get 2 points towards the bonus point system for every save. That's now changed to if the save is made from a shot with inside the box, they get 3 points on the bonus point system. If it's outside of the box, they get 2. So there's a slight upside on the goalkeepers there. And then also from the penalties, it actually is dropped down 1. But it makes no difference because what will happen is not only will they get the point from the penalty save, the 8 points from the penalty save, but they'll also get the 3 points for the inside the box. So they'll actually get 11 points, which is the same as they would have got last season. The other big change is penalties scored. So on the bonus point system, last season, defenders only got 12 points if they took the penalty. Midfielders got 18 points and forwards got 24 points. So what that typically meant was that if you had a forward who took penalties, and he would almost certainly get the 3 bonus points, especially if he scored it. This year, they've leveled the playing field, and a penalty scored is 12 bonus points on the system for all that as well. So please note, you're not getting 12 points for a penalty scored. It just goes to their bonus points score, and then the one with the highest in that game week for that game fixture will get 3 points, 2 points, and then 1 point respectively as well. And then the last one is just tackles. So last season it was tackles won versus tackles lost, so it would even itself out. They've removed the minus the tackles lost, so you just get a 2 points per tackle as well. So it does again if you look at these, it's just giving more emphasis to defenders potentially getting bonus points on that. Last season they got hammered on the bonus point system because they would get a -4 for every goal conceded. So as soon as a goal was conceded, they were unlikely to get bonus points at all. This obviously gives them opportunities and especially for goalkeepers as well, to start picking up and getting points elsewhere for that as well. So it's mainly the changes around balancing out defenders getting more points on the bonus system. For me, I don't understand all of the points of the bonus system. I've never really looked too much into it. you typically know that there are certain players that are going to get lots of points, bonus points. They're bonus points magnets, and then others that just are not so much. So they're quite easy to spot throughout each season. Salah, for example, would often get bonus points, top bonus points every week, as would Cunha, for example, when he was at Wolves. So and then there's a few others in there as well that stand out, but realistically I don't think, again, this is going to change. It just gives it a little bit more towards those defenders, which I feel like most of the changes this season have done as well. And last but not least, of the major 6 changes that came up was the global leagues. So they've now introduced top 1% and top 10% leagues. So depending on where you finished in the league last season, if you finished, I think there was 11.4 million players last year watching this and playing FPL. If you finished in the top 114,000, you will be automatically joined to the top 1% league, which is an amazing achievement. And of course, real bragging rights for yourself amongst your friends. I personally finished within the top 10%. So I actually finished, I think, 7% in the world, just about 700,000. But for anyone who finished in the top 1.14 million, would have landed in the top 10% league for this season as well. I just think this is a nice little addition. There's no real change to the game as well. It just gives you a bit of recognition for finishing high up, and gives people incentive to continue to do so, to stay in those top leagues for future seasons as well. So let me know in the comments below, where did you finish? Are you in any of these global qualifying leagues for the top 1%, top 10%? And if you are, don't forget to join the FPL Fanzone channel and hit that like and subscribe button. Once again, thank you for watching FPL Fanzone. If you've got this far into the video, you are a true believer. Please hit that like button, leave a comment below on what you're looking for, any questions you have on the changes. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. It's free to do. It really helps the channel and obviously boosts the numbers for the YouTube algorithm. So we'd really appreciate it if you're new around here to hit that subscribe button. Thanks again for watching, and may all of your arrows be green.